Today I've got Connie Gatlin, who is here by popular demand. She is a theater director locally and an arts enthusiast, and I'm interested to talk to her today.
I came because you weren't there and broke me.
Boy, money talks, doesn't
I'm
it?
telling you, it does.
It really does.
And look, it's an issue.
Now, Steve's your husband.
Well, we've been divorced for a while now. Yeah, Steve
that-
Gatlin.
yeah.
Now there are 4 Steve Gatlins in
I thought there
Cleveland,
was.
Tennessee. Yeah, there are 4, and there's Steve D. Gatlin. There are 2 of those at least. So yeah.
Wonder is no relation to the Gatlin brothers?
Oh,
The
I always
singing
say
group?
yes. Yes, we are back from Texas. I always say yes.
Yeah. Are you from Texas?
No, I'm from Tennessee, Sweetwater.
Sweetwater.
And then Cleveland. We moved here when I was 9.
Do you remember living in Sweetwater prior to being growing up?
Oh, I certainly do. Yes, I have a lot of great memories about Sweetwater. In fact, wrote a book called Sunday After Sunday because in those early years my life was kind of defined by North Sweetwater Baptist Church.
Where
Have a lot of
is
memories.
that, North?
Well, I think it's now defunct. I think it has just, passed away. It's on a hill north, kind of west of the city, of what's called downtown Sweetwater. Mm-hmm. I had all these stories in my head that my daddy had told my whole life, and I just thought they were worth sharing. So I went looking one winter Sunday. I went looking for North Sweetwater Baptist Church, and I found it. And there are a lot of stories.
Had you not
mainly
really been there
humorous.
since you were 9?
Hadn't been there since I was a child.
Sweetwater never really took off because it was so wide, I think, don't you? It seemed like it was spread out so much.
It was one of those one-sided southern
Yeah.
towns,
Yeah.
Shops are along one side and the railroad track is on the other side.
I've done some jobs in Sweetwater, and I always went to that hardware store. I can't think of the name. I guess it's Ace. But boy, they're
Originally
friendly.
it wasn't Ace. Originally, Wright's Hardware. Wright's Hardware.
They're really friendly there.
Ah,
I was there one day and I was loading something. Somebody stopped and helped me load it in my car. And it doesn't take long to get there. What, 40 minutes maybe?
About that.
35 maybe?
Yes.
So what did your dad do there?
He worked, in his first job, he worked at the creosote plant. Am I saying that
That was a
correctly?
big, creosote.
Creosote. And then for a while when I was younger, he worked in Oak Ridge. Went back and forth up to Oak Ridge and worked at the plant there.
Oh.
And then he began to sell insurance. And that's what got us to Cleveland.
As an insurance
As
salesman.
an insurance
Had
salesman.
he thought he had really made it big, maybe, I guess, right?
I remember that we were able to have a new house and it had 2 bathrooms.
In
And
Cleveland.
so that was a big deal. No, in Sweetwater. Before we left Sweetwater. And that was a big deal. Yeah.
How many was in your family?
There was my brother and myself and C.E. and Cody. Yeah.
So when you came to Cleveland at 9, you don't remember a whole lot before 9 except just...
Oh, I have a lot of real clear memories of church and family and what happened in Sweetwater. I spent a lot of time at my mama's house, and it was there on Monroe Street, which is one of the main streets in Sweetwater, and it was on the corner of Monroe Street and the road that takes you down to the high school. I don't know. I have tons of real clear childhood memories.
Where did the title come from Sunday to Sunday?
It most of these stories took place in church. They're the ones that stood out in my mind, and C.E. loved to tell them. And so I just got busy one winter and just put them all on paper and put it into a book.
So, like, what type of things?
I remember C.E. loved to tell the story about my Uncle John, who was one summer in revival, he was stung on the head by a wasp. Now, John was kind of a tough old cuss, and there, you know, his actual position with the Lord was often discussed and debated. But he was stung on the head by a wasp that flew right in the window. See, he would describe how the wasp was circling his bald head and landed right in the middle of the sweat on his head, stung him. John sat up, and his hand went up and began to tear because this wasp had stung him on his bald head. And the preacher saw him and stopped the service and said, "Thank the Lord, Brother John done come home to Jesus." And we just had a big old gathering right there around John's. They always sat right in front of my parents. This was my uncle and aunt, and that's a story. I remember Christmas. There was always a big play and pageant, and I remember I guess it was the last Christmas we were there. Santa Claus comes and he gives out little bags of candy, to an orange and a hard piece of hard candy peppermint. I was sitting on the edge of this pew, and Santa Claus was wearing my daddy's shoes.
Oh.
So it just puzzled my little mind, and it just put that in your head. And just stories.
Well, when you're younger, going to church regular, the weeks are Sunday to Sunday.
That marked
that defines the
did.
beginning and the end, and
it did. Yes.
If you don't go to church regular, you don't have an understanding of how that helps you to, I don't know, just sort of keep things in perspective or something.
Yeah, I think that probably happened to the world during pandemic when everybody was hunkered down, as Leslie Jordan says. Yeah.
It's hard to watch it on TV and have the same effect on you.
There's nothing really like being in the room where it happens.
I think that's the reason they do that, is so that to come together and to.
Oh, it's fellowship. It's important.
But them saying that the John guy, they didn't know his position with God. I don't know if I agree with that either. Do you?
My uncle.
Who's to question his position?
This was a small southern town and a small Southern Baptist church, so everything was discussed over cigarettes on the gravel parking lot. Okay, because that's when cigarettes were
popular.
Yes.
It wasn't if you smoked; it was what was your brand.
What was your brand? Absolutely.
What he smoked? Do you remember?
My daddy?
No.
I don't remember what Uncle John smoked. He always smoked Camels.
Unfiltered?
Yeah.
So when you came to Cleveland, did y'all continue going to the Baptist church?
We did. We did. We had first lived in a small rental home for about 6 months, and then my family purchased a home down off Blue Springs Road. And we went to a Baptist church there in South Cleveland.
Would that have been what would be Rolandbrook? Or was Rolandbrook developed by then?
Rolandbrook, I think, is on the west side. Blue Springs Road continues from South Ocoee all the way on down to Georgia.
Yeah. So it's a small. That wasn't much around there then, was it?
No, there wasn't. I think the Bryants had built 3 or 4 rows or streets of homes, and I later became friends with the Bryant ladies and came to know that. But yeah, it was a small home down there.
I saw where you're in the choir at First Baptist. The one up here.
Yes.
How long have you been on that?
We joined First Baptist after, in the years after we lost our son. Grief is a hard thing to maneuver through, and I came to a point in life where I couldn't do it anymore. I had gotten out of bed, I had taken care of my daughter, she deserved a life. Grief hits you tough and hard, and I just got to a point, and we were driving down North Ocoee Street, and Mr. Gatlin said, well, I was telling him I'm just at the end of my tether here. And he said, well, maybe it's time we found a church. And we had attended off and on here and there, you know, not with any kind of dedication, until we went to First Baptist Church one Sunday morning. And I didn't know this was going to get theological, but we'd visited several places, and we went into First Baptist, and we're sitting here, and the orchestra strikes up, and the orchestra, and it's music, and it, you know, touches my heart, just. And then before the sermon, there's a drama that is a small acting scene put out, and I'm going, okay, you know, it's just another check mark, and I will never forget. Mr. Gatlin had always been kind of afraid that a big church would be stuffy and cold and, you know, not really welcoming. Mm-hmm. Well, the sermon that Alan Lockerman was preaching that day dealt with being a more welcoming church to people who really needed it. His sermon said, he was talking to the members, and he had this great gift of chastising his members and then bringing them to your heart, to his heart, and to the Lord. He said, y'all are always real quick to come to me and say, this new bank president has come to town. We need to get him in First Baptist. Or this new business person has got we need to get these wealthy people. And Alan Lockerman said, that's not what we need. That's not our job. He said, when people are hurting, when, you know, their marriage breaks up, when their finances go, you know, off the rails, he said, those are the folks that we need to pull into this church. And that was his sermon that day. And you know, Mr. Gatlin looked at me, and I looked at him, and we just, you know, we had to join in. It just felt like with the music and the drama and all that kind of stuff, it just was like the Lord had a big old magic marker in his hand and was checking things off for the Gatlins. You know, so we shortly thereafter became members and have loved it and treasure all the sermons that I sat under with Alan Lockerman.
They say he was really good. I never listened to him.
An incredible preacher, teacher, yes.
Glenn Ramsey goes there, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
He's a good friend of mine.
Oh, good, yes. I know Susan from his family.
Yeah. Now, when did you get in? Did you teach at Bradley?
I taught at Bradley. That was my first teaching job.
What years were you there?
75-6 was my first year at Bradley High School, and Bradley High School had never done a musical. They'd never done a high school musical, and of course I loved them, and they hadn't done a full-length play in 10 years, so I figured it's my job we're going to do a musical.
Why you?
I was hired to teach theater. So
had you been in theater?
Oh, well, that was my college degree. Was in theater. I did it at Bradley. When I was at Bradley on a limited basis, there wasn't a lot offered or whatever, but that's what I wanted to do. Going through college, I realized I need to teach theater. That's what I wanted to do.
You didn't want to act?
You know, I enjoy acting. I've done several plays in my life. It's great fun. I never had the drive to become an actress, you know, and work. Although I love storytelling, that's a bit of acting. I love directing, and that's being able to watch other people act and help shepherd them in various ways.
But you never had a calling to be a famous actor?
I did not, and I'm thankful for it because it's a hard life.
Boy, that would really be hard, hoping you get another job.
Exactly.
You'd have to get paid so much for every movie that you wouldn't have to work in case you didn't get another job.
Exactly.
Is it hard for these actors to like lose favor of people wanting to watch them, like that guy that played on Archie Bunker? What's that boy's name? They called him Meathead, but what was?
He went on to do some directing.
Yeah, because he couldn't get an acting job because they had him stereotyped as.
That's what the business does. Yeah.
Wonder what if you're a real good actor, they'll stereotype you. right?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about the film business, but it does happen. That's just kind of how it works.
You think film's different than theater?
Absolutely.
What do you think is the difference?
Theater is live. It happens right then in that moment. And only the people who are gathered there together in that house at that point in time experience the same thing. Because the next night, it's a little different. So.
What could be different if it's the same play?
Well, delivery, timing. Okay, I was watching a performance of Noises Off, which is a great comedy on the Broadway stage, and all of a sudden this carpenter walks out in carpenter dress, and he goes over, and this door had halfway fallen off, and he attaches it, and then he leaves the scene. Later on, I read that wasn't a part of the script. The door actually fell off the hinges, and the comedy was so crazy and wild that he just walked out there and did it and carried on. So.
If you watch two plays in a row, the same play, so you're saying they would be little nuances difference?
Oh yes, oh yes. We just finished a musical locally called Heartstrings, and because of all kinds of reasons, I had never really focused and concentrated on the show until the first night of the performance. And I was watching and making notes, and I woke up Saturday morning and made a list. And I cut 3 songs and 1 scene from the show. And it was better the next night because I just had to focus and trim it down.
So you trimmed it down the second night?
Mm-hmm.
You just felt like it was too long, or what?
I felt like it wasn't as good as it could have been. And Friday night, it was better. Or the second night, Saturday night, it was better. Yeah.
Now, some of these Broadway plays, they go on for months, right?
They do.
Would they get to where they're eventually like the same, more of the same? They work out,
Very
weed through.
close. Very close.
In other
But I
words,
think
they'd
as long
weed
as
through
you're-
some of the stuff.
Yeah, but I think as long as you're dealing with human beings, something subtle will be different each night.
You know, in a lot of these old sitcoms and stuff, they would have the same actors play.
Yes.
Watching Andy Griffith, there'll be a lot of people on Father Knows Best that'll play different characters. It was okay for them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you did that today, you'd have to be a Tom Hanks to pull it off.
Perhaps.
Why do some people want to play in a theater? Like, do you have local people from here?
We do have a lot of folks who are local, and they'll come and audition for, all the opportunities that they can. They just love doing it. It is it's a special thing to be able to make a house full of people laugh. Because
Performing arts is what.
Exactly.
So where did you do this at?
Where did I? The last show?
Yeah.
We partnered with Cleveland State, and they were very helpful. And the problem is, of course, they've got a lot of other things going on. Mm-hmm. And we were in there for a limited amount of time, and then a limited number of days per week.
That you could, practice?
Exactly.
How many practice nights do you get there?
We didn't get enough, as many as I wanted.
5?
Well, we had 4 the first week, and then 3 the week of the show. And that's tough.
Where do you practice otherwise? Somewhere else?
Cleveland City Ballet. It's my dance studio. It is a great space. It's in the old woolen mill. We moved when
Upstairs?
we purchased. Mm-hmm. When we purchased Cleveland City Ballet, we what drew us to it was this wooden flooring. Mm-hmm. It has wooden floors underneath wooden beams and joists, mm-hmm. and by the time a dancer weighs 70 or 80 pounds, and they're leaping and jumping on concrete, it's detrimental to their...
Hurts their shins and everything.
It's just detrimental to their bodies. So when my daughter was really, she's a smart woman, and I always thought she's going to be a doctor, a lawyer, business person. She's going to do real well and make a great living for herself. She came home as a freshman in high school and wanted to She said, I want to dance. I said, we do that 4 days a week. We go down there and have lessons. And she said, well, I want to do this for a living. And I went, oh, no.
It's hard to make a living doing that, I guess.
Hard to make a living. Although she's had some great jobs, I'll have to say. Thank you, Lord. She's had some great jobs. So we began to learn about. We took her to North Carolina School of the Arts, and we took her to Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, and we would carry her in the summer to all these great programs. We were, you know, I love how the Lord works. We were learning a lot about dance studios and what was good and bad and indifferent and such. And then, the year she was graduating high school, we became owners of Cleveland City Ballet, and so
You just purchased it?
we moved it from the Village Mall down to the Woolen Mill, and we've been there ever since. And it's a great space. So we rehearse Bangarang productions
There.
there in the studio.
What is a ballet company? Would you call that a company?
We have a company class, which is a group of the girls who sign on to take extra classes and to do extra performances. All families, they don't do that, but the few who want to do that, you know, we offer that for them.
So you bought this ballet company in order to give lessons to take ballet?
Yes.
Is there a ballet teacher in Cleveland?
Oh, we've got a whole passel of them. Yeah, great ones.
They can walk through the toes and all that stuff?
Yes, indeed. They
Any
certainly
men
do.
or just all women?
We have one of our instructors is Mr. Frank, who used to teach with Chattanooga Ballet Company, and came of age and worked in San Francisco on the West Coast when he was younger. But there are excellent ballet teachers. Now I'm kind of picky about having excellent ballet instructors. Our teachers, the tap teachers, the contemporary teachers, the ballet instructors, they're all really good at what they do because people bring us their children, they give us their time, and they give us the money to play these artists. It's important. You know, I would not put people out there to teach ballet if they didn't know what they were doing. You know, I think that's my obligation.
So it's not just ballet?
We teach ballet, tap, jazz, contemporary.
What's
and
contemporary?
Contemporary it's very balletic, to kind of coin a word, but it doesn't have the internal structure that ballet has. The ballet, the art of ballet has been around since the 1400s.
Do you teach that?
Yes, we do.
So it's not.
It's
Has it
traditional.
changed?
Everything changes, you know. And contemporary is just sort of a changed ballet. It's softer, it is more interpretive than structured ballet. A lot of younger girls take to it. It doesn't call for as much training, as much time investment. In ballet, if you're headed toward point shoes, and you know what I'm saying by point shoes.
I mean, where they stand
up
on their
your toes. Yes. If you're headed to that, you've got to put the work in to develop your muscles, to develop your knees, to develop your ankle strength in order to be able to safely do that.
That's why they wear the wraps around their ankles.
The wraps around their ankles helps, yes.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem.
So ballet would be equivalent to jiu-jitsu. It's really specific, maybe?
It is
It's
specific.
a specific
yes,
art.
Yes, it is. It's interesting. I've never heard it compared.
But I mean, it's very structured.
It is a structured art. Yes, it is.
And some of these, like how many is in this class?
Our classes vary depending on the age level, and it's kind of like, like school classes. Sometimes you've got a class of 30 in one community, and sometimes it's 12.
Like one day a week?
One day a week. Normally our classes run 10 to 12 students. We keep it under 12. Sometimes it's as few as 8 or 10, you know.
So it gives these girls some structure, I guess.
Oh,
something to do. And
it's a development of the arts, and I believe the arts enrich everybody's soul in some way or another. And these girls, you know, young women, young girls deal with
everything.
all kinds of difficult issues, you know. I feel like that being good in ballet class gives them a self-confidence. Well, I learned to do that plie today. I can do a three-point turn. You know, it gives them a confidence. We have the best group of folks and parents and such. We, our motto, it's not a motto, but our theme at the studio is, you're not in competition with another girl, you're only in competition with yourself to be better tomorrow than you are today.
So from this, you do the theater also. So
when we purchased Cleveland City Ballet, we set it up as Cleveland City Ballet Bangarang Productions, which is the theater arm of
what's your next thing coming up? Do you have a schedule?
I knew. We'll have a show in February. Hopefully, it's a musical. We're looking at a big stage musical.
So you don't know what the
decision is being made this week. Yeah.
So
we did last March. We did a show called Bright Star. And Bright Star was written by Steve Martin and Edie Brickell.
I remember that.
And it was a Broadway show, and it was fantastic. And it's all about grace and forgiveness, and it's set to country and bluegrass music. I saw it pre-pandemic in New York with my daughter, and I knew, you know, at intermission I looked at Abigail and said, Cleveland's going to love this show. And I knew then I was going to try to do it locally, and it's a great show for Cleveland. Our community understood grace and forgiveness, and of course most everybody around here really enjoys country and bluegrass, so it was, you know, it was a fit.
And Steve Martin's playing bluegrass now, so.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, he is.
Do you have to pay anything to use their play?
You certainly do. Big bucks.
Just to use their play?
Just to get the privilege of calling that name, getting the scripts, you know, using
I'm curious,
the music.
what would that cost?
Bright Star for a local group that could only seat about 375 seats, and we did that pretty much. We were able to establish in this small venue 187 seats is what we could seat, and except for Thursday night, there were 4 empty seats on Thursday night, and we packed the place out and had standing room only. But I think it was $2,700.
That's what you have to pay. Who?
The royalty rights. There's a company called Music Theater International, and they own a whole.
So they would buy the rights to that play,
right,
or the rights to sell it?
And there are several different companies that do that. You have to lease with them and.
See, I would never thought all of that would be the details of doing that. That's complicated, isn't it?
Well, you know, I've been doing it so long, it's not complicated for me. But if you're starting out, you know, to be legal, you know, you have to pay the.
Don't want Steve Martin suing you, right, for $2,700?
You know, I love theater in Cleveland, Tennessee, but I'm not going to jail for it. You know,
would it be better just to do your own, have somebody write a play?
You know, that's a funny thing you said that. Heartstrings is the thing we just finished at Cleveland State. And we had a cast of 24. We had a band of 3. And we featured Jack Clark, of course, to honor his induction into the Southern Gospel Music Hall of Fame. We had great houses. We were over 220, 230, and then reached 250 people that for the last performance on Sunday afternoon. I wrote Heartstrings. I put it together. It is I had done a musical review called All Night Strut, which is music from the 40s, and it's a show that's out there. You can rent and do it, and we had done it in dinner theater at First Baptist, and it came to me one day, well, we could do that with country music, and So I put this together with country music, a few scenes, some narration, some dialogue.
So
And
you
people loved it.
So your place, somebody could get permission to do them
Just
also.
give me a call and I'll write
But
me
do
a
you
check.
have do you
and I'll
have
do
it
that.
with that royalty company?
No, I don't.
Oh.
It's probably something that would be beneficial to pursue,
Mm-hmm.
but I haven't done it.
So when you have these, how do people audition for them?
Well, I work with a group now that's into 3 years. It's called Artists Here Partnership. And this group came into existence. I was working on another project in February of 19. And in February of 19, in this other project, I was able to get 24 different artists in the same room at Lee University. And it was the director of the orchestra and a choral director from Lee and various individual artists, painters and jewelry makers and theater people. There are other theater groups in town. And we got together, they all came to this meeting to work on this project, but nobody wanted to talk about the website or the registry or any of those kinds. All those people wanted to talk about was the fact that Cleveland, Tennessee does not have a visual performing arts center. It's the missing piece of the puzzle in Cleveland, Tennessee. We don't have any kind of community home place for creatives, for artists, for conducting painting workshops, and everybody gathered together under the same umbrella and creating theater, a place for the orchestra to rehearse and have their instrumentation stored so that they can get to it. We don't have a performance hall, where you can get enough people together.
Cleveland State or Lee College is it, right?
That's it.
And they'd be hard to.
They're hard.
They need it.
They're hard to book because
What about Bradley
it goes
High?
for them. Bradley High School's a great theater in its current rendition. When I worked there as a teacher, we were in what was called the Little Theater.
Yeah.
Behind there. But there again, the schools, those houses are built for the students of Bradley High School and Cleveland State and Lee College.
Yeah.
It's also expensive. They all have rates that are expensive for any community theater group.
You could never build a theater and rent it out to theater companies and stuff because
Why not? Why not?
probably the construction cost would be too much. Maybe.
I am an absolute believer that Cleveland, Tennessee needs a visual and performing arts center.
How many would it seat?
Good 600 to 700 would be great. Theater.
Would the seats be sitting down where you could see the stage, or would
Absolutely, absolutely. I love to tell the story about Maryville College. Are you familiar with Clayton Center in Maryville? I grew up as a child in Sweetwater, and Maryville was just a small town. Maryville, up the road. Yeah. And the Clayton Center is world class. It's in Maryville. It is connected to the college, Maryville College there. When I say world class, I'm talking Paris, London. It is world class. We visited it there, this committee I'm working with. It all began with a casual conversation at a cocktail party between the president of Maryville College and the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce in Maryville. And now this place is, the right person, the right contact. Of course, it's the Clayton family Homes. It's just going to take a connection. And because Cleveland is such a grand and wonderful place to live and raise children and go to school. And, we have so many pluses, but this is a missing piece of the puzzle. And we have a great group now. We've been working for 3.5 years. We've achieved several grants. We're working now with Americans for the Arts to do an economic study of how much the arts impact local communities. Every time you go down to the Tivoli to see a play or to see a concert, Steve Martin's on the way there playing bluegrass. When you stand up at intermission and look around, there, Cleveland is half
I've
the
been there
house.
several times.
Cleveland is half the house, and that's money that we're just saying, okay, Chattanooga, here, just take this money, Chattanooga. That could be here. It needs to be here. So that's my sermon for this discussion.
On Sunday.
My Sunday sermon today. Yes.
So do people come and audition for these parts?
They do. We put out word through media and
So
posters and that kind
we're
of thing.
auditioning for.
We're auditioning for Heartstrings. Come and sing me your favorite country song. And these people showed up, and they're wonderful.
Most people from Cleveland.
Yeah, they're all from Cleveland.
How do you say you didn't get the job, Fred?
One of the things I always try to do, from back when I was teaching high school, if you showed up for audition, I'm gonna find something for you to do. Okay, there in a high school musical, you can always put more people in the chorus. Okay.
Yeah.
But they become a part of the show, and it works for that.
It might just be the person walking by in the background or something.
Might be. But they're a part of the show.
Can some people act some parts but not others?
Oh, sure.
Can some people act either one?
Yeah, sure. Tom Hanks can do anything.
Who else?
I didn't know it was a test.
John Travolta?
I didn't prepare.
How about John Travolta?
John Travolta's good. He sure is.
He can do either one.
I would think so, yeah.
Have you ever met him?
You know what? That's funny. Yes. I haven't met him, but I shook his hand. I used to take students and adults to New York on theater tours. We'd go and stay 4 or 5 days and see 3 or 4 plays. And we came back from the theater once on a trip a very long time ago, in my very early years. And when we got to the Edison Hotel, there were police cordons, those barricades things, and trucks, big old trucks with all that wiring and stuff. And so we just stood around outside the hotel, and very quickly a line formed. The police brought all these barricades, and we were standing here on these barricades. We couldn't tell what was going on, but we knew something was. So eventually, Sylvester Stallone showed up around the corner down here, and there's people over there, and all of us who are hanging on these barricades watching. And the kids began to yell at him. So he came over, and he was shaking people's hands going up and down this
Sylvester
line.
Stallone.
Sylvester Stallone. He was the producer for a movie called Staying Alive, which is a John Travolta movie.
I didn't realize he was a producer.
When, at the very end of Staying Alive, John Travolta pushes through a swinging door, and the camera focuses on his hind end going down the street. Okay, Travolta. He shows up, and the kids are screaming, and he wouldn't come over. And so Sylvester Stallone walked over and got him by the arm and was talking to him, come over. So Stallone, Travolta came over with him, and the two of them walked down this line and shook all our hands.
Was it bigger than life?
It was. Yeah, it was. He was very impressive.
Was it? If you just saw him in a crowd, would it be as impressive, or was it because they had blocked the road?
Oh, I'm sure it was all of the atmospheric elements. Yeah.
The atmosphere helps, doesn't it?
Oh, it's why restaurants lower the lights. Makes everything better.
Turn the music up.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you think that if they didn't lower the lights in restaurants, it would not be the same thing?
Oh, well, think about any experience that you've had. If you go to dinner,
they call it.
If you go to dinner down in a beautiful place in Chattanooga, it's very different from going to Mickey D's and getting a burger.
You can't hardly see the check when they bring it to you. It's because you can't hardly read the credit card stuff. It's hard to. You have to take your phone and look at it.
Sure.
Do you think that that anybody from Cleveland that could be in one of these plays could be discovered and be the next John Travolta, or do you think those days are over?
No, I don't think they're over. I think talent is kind of like we never really plumb the depths of all the talent that is here. I think it's related to what the Lord has planned for each and every life and what people want, you know. Everybody wants a different thing out of their job or their life or their responsibilities or whatever. I have definitely worked with people who are as talented as folks you've seen on major screen films. Definitely. And it's just that that's not what they wanted for their life.
They could care less.
Well, they cared about other things more.
Do they know they're talented, these people?
Oh, sure they do. Sure they do. Yeah.
Maybe they don't have the confidence.
Well, I think it's more of a. I know a lot of folks lack confidence. You know, it's one thing. It's one reason I always tried to cast everybody who showed up, find something for them to do. I think it's important. I think it's a confidence builder.
Self-esteem or confidence?
Both.
Or is it the same thing?
Not the same thing exactly, but close. Yeah.
Let me tell you about Capstar Bank. They're located in Nashville, Hendersonville, Gallatin, Athens, Madisonville, Sweetwater, Etowah, and in Cleveland at 950 25th Street and 3855 North Ocoee Street. I've used them. I like them. Give them a try. They're no problem. Hello, I'm Dee Burris, and most of you know me as a general contractor. In October of 2020, I started a podcast that I call The Discussion with Dee Burris. Each week, I have conversations with interesting, informative, and fascinating people from Cleveland and Bradley County and the surrounding areas. You can watch the discussion at dburris.com on YouTube and Facebook, where we would ask you to please subscribe, it's free, for updates and notifications of new shows. It's no problem.
So these performing arts, like people that are in Cleveland, does anybody stand out to you that's really good as far as an actor?
That I have seen, that I have worked with.
Yeah.
Very, very much so. You know, we've had students go through all of our school, both of our high schools primarily, and all three now, four, who've gone on to work professionally. Some of them have pursued it and stayed with it, and some of them have not. You know, come back home or settled somewhere, or, you know, decided to let that part of their life go. We had vocal students who performed in Disneyland, Disney World. You know, one that comes to mind is a girl who worked in the Voices of Liberty at Disney World, was a great vocalist and still is, but she did that for a while and then moved on. You know, Abigail was able to.
Now, your daughter, right?
My daughter. She was able to get cast as a rockette. You know, a Radio City rockette.
But that's dancing, not acting.
That's
right?
dancing, not acting. Acting is. I'm sorry.
Now, a rockette, that's been around since what, mid-20s?
I want to say. Could be 27 or 28. They've been around that long. Yes, they have, because they're good. You know, this was one of her dream jobs, and
It's like a Dallas cowboy cheerleader.
oh,
Similar.
don't you even consider and compare those two jobs? No.
Well,
I'll have
it's
to say,
got-
I don't agree with that.
But it's synonymous with a hard to get on and a famous thing, right?
You know, you're speaking of something I really don't have any knowledge of. I don't know how hard it is to get cast as a cowboy.
I would say it would be
cheerleader.
difficult. But the Rockettes, there's only been 2,000 or 3,000 since since it started.
Since
so
it began, yeah. The day Abigail, she auditioned twice, once in Chicago and once I think, I can't remember the first one. When we did the New York audition, there were over 600 women standing in a line that encircled that entire block.
just trying
in
to
New
get
York
a
City.
chance.
They hired 4.
Golly, and she was one of the
She was
4
one of the 4.
because of her talent in dancing, I
She
guess.
and dedication, and she and there's a style. Rockettes have a style and modus of, a way they do things, and she set out to get that job, and so she got training specifically in the Rockette
That specific
style.
style of dancing.
Yes, that style.
Which is what?
Rockette style. That's what it's just called, precision.
Precision.
Dancing is what it is, and
No.
she loved it. And then she wanted to do musical theater, so she was there several years, and then she booked a gig with traveling with Beauty and the Beast. So she traveled the country and a good portion of Europe, being one of the silly girls in Beauty and the Beast.
So doing the theater,
Yeah.
the play.
Yeah.
So she gets to travel around just doing that same. Would that get old doing the same thing?
Well, in her particular role, there are those 3 silly girls who are after the hero person, and they would interchange them.
Oh, so they could.
So they could just
Break
get a
the
little
monotony a
variety.
little bit.
Yeah.
If you wanted to be a famous actor, it would be hard to. It'd be like getting struck by lightning, wouldn't it?
I don't know. We became acquainted with the Barter Theater. There are a dozen or so regional theaters that do very, very good quality work. There's one 3 hours up the road. It's called the Barter Theater, and it's called the Barter Theater because it was begun there in that small Appalachian town. And then the Depression hit. Okay, it was formed pre-Depression times, and during the Depression, the farmers who lived in all these farms on the mountains would bring eggs and vegetables and chickens, and that's how they paid for their ticket. They would bring food to feed the performers, so it became known as the Barter Theater. You go to the Barter Theater, and on the walls in the lobby, there's Henry Fonda, there's Patricia Neal, there's a whole host of folks whose faces are there, who got their start working there at the Barter, just up from Knoxville.
Wasn't that like a troubadour? Wasn't that what a troubadour did? They
No,
would sing for their food.
I think so, yes, back in the Middle Ages.
Yeah, Middle Ages.
Yeah, a while back.
Now that one director that wrote those good movies, what's his name? Quentin Tarantino.
Yes,
He's from Knoxville, right?
I think so, yes. Yeah.
He's really good.
There are a whole lot of folks out there.
How about John Malkovich?
How
You
about him?
familiar with him?
A little. Just
He's
a
a little odd, isn't he?
Well, artists sometimes are a little odd.
What makes an artist odd?
Choices they make. I think artists have inner voices that can lead them in one direction or another.
Are they eccentric?
I think eccentric is a good word.
Do a lot of them come from troubled childhoods?
No, I
Is
don't
that
think
common?
anymore. I don't think any more so than anybody else.
But they,
Folks walking down the street. Trouble is everywhere.
But they generally, would you say they think outside the box, or they just?
I think they do. I think they think outside the box, but I also think it's a skill that helps them solve problems. I'm a firm believer that artists solve problems. They take black spots on a piece of white paper and create melody and harmony, and they solve that problem. They take words from a dictionary and put them together in a way that makes you cry, makes you laugh. Artists solve problems, and I think that all of the youth one of the things that I've worked with in my life is the Cherries Jubilee auction that we have every spring. It was first begun by the Arts Committee of the Chamber. We started this years ago. June Chase was on this group, and we got together, and after all these years, we are now up to, I think it's like $700,000 or $800,000 that we have raised to put right back into the classrooms of Cleveland and Bradley County for arts experiences, hiring artists to come in and work one-on-one with children in small groups in the classrooms. I feel like arts experiences are invaluable in raising an intelligent, soulful human being.
But learning to paint a picture.
I don't think it's about learning to paint a picture. I think it's about learning to hold a brush and dabble in color. Is that eccentric?
I don't know. I think that what you're saying is true, but I'm not sure why it is true, if that makes sense. Because I know a poet can write a poem that will inspire you or solve a dilemma you've got, or you can relate it to something. But I'm not sure how a painter can do that, because they're just painting a picture.
If you want residential or commercial plumbing, give Rick's Plumbing a call. Call Jason or Josh. They'll do you a good job. I use them. I've used them for years. They're no problem.
Come on, woo! One, two.
Yeah, what's the word for shadow box art?
I'm sorry. I'm out of my wheelhouse here. I
But
don't
it's
really
art.
know. It is. Well, all art reveals what's in your soul. And that's one of its purposes, I feel like.
I agree with that. But why would I care what's in your soul? So I think art allows you to reveal what's in your soul.
Yes, I agree.
Because why do I care what's in your soul?
We all learn from one another. We all learn from one another. If you have suffered great trauma, such as with the box here, sharing that, number one, it lessens your load. If you have shared that, you have taken that burden and you have spread it out so it's not as heavy on you. Other people can help share that. Other people can understand it. I just firmly believe that, what was it, Picasso said, art washes away the dust of the daily that burdens us down unless it needs to be brushed away from our souls. Sometimes you just have to express yourself and unload and share your burdens. I just feel like it makes the world go better.
I can see that in music or in poetry, or
But
maybe
not in art.
not in paintings.
Do you love to look at the mountains when the sun's setting there and the colors, and then particularly in the fall? And I think that it depends on, I think, what you're calling
Now
art.
we got photo. Now, well, how do you define as art?
I think everything relating to a representation, an impression, color, music, harmony, delivering a word just so. I feel like all of that is art. What you're doing here with this discussion is an art form, relatively new to the world, but you've latched onto this. It's an expression. It's an art form.
Webster's dictionary defines art as provokes thought. Would that sum it up?
I wouldn't say sum it up, but I certainly think it's on track.
But it provokes thought.
I think
Not
that's
necessarily
important.
good or bad. Could be good art, but it could be bad art.
It could, yes.
But what are those boxes where they take things and they put inside it and arrange it? What is that, Gwen? It's called a. It's shadow box, but they got another word for it. And there's there's famous artists that sell this stuff for $150,000. I mean, it's a big thing, and it really just looks like your grandmother's above her, maybe
Medicine cabinet.
medicine cabinet. It's literally stuff like that.
I get it.
But I can't think of the name of that. But you like Bob Ross. You watch any of Bob Ross's?
I have seen bits and pieces of it down through the years. He's on TV a lot. I think he has a great gift, at inspiring people to pick up a brush and do something
Calm
with
down. Do you know he was a drill sergeant?
I did
in
not
the
know
Army. Yeah, he said that he yelled so much that when he quit being a drill sergeant, he promised himself he'd never yell again, and that's why he talks so soft.
Ah, okay.
Because he's really good, isn't he?
I have an appreciation for anybody that can take a brush and turn out something that looks like he does.
Would you prefer theater over poetry?
Oh, I don't think it's a thing that I prefer one over the other at all. Theater is my calling. It's what I do. It's what I've done since I was 5 years old on my mama's porch. But I have a deep, deep appreciation for musicians and vocalists and painters and sculptors and folks who can do something different. That's what
Now, sculpting is another thing.
Yes,
I
it
haven't
is.
really, not sure why I can't really get it.
It's just a matter of what we're exposed to. We're exposed to. This is East Tennessee is my home, and I desperately love it. All of the Appalachian traditions and ways of life and idioms and expressions, but we've been limited. One of the things that limits us is here. Now, the world has changed in my lifetime. The world has changed absolutely upside down because, at that computer screen, we can access great museums, we can access great painting.
Just like being there, isn't
we
it?
have all that now a day that we did not have when I was a child. So I think it's all important. I think it all has a place, and I think it all is necessary for the world. I really do.
You think it calms people down more than they realize?
Oh, without doubt. Without doubt.
You think it's a matter of seeing somebody else doing something that we can watch and we can put ourselves in their place and we can say, that relates to me in this way and in that way?
I think in the world we live in today, with the strife and the stress and the attacks that happen daily in our governments, in our leaders, I think empathy and understanding are two issues that they're just not out there. They're just not there.
Has that always been a
No,
problem?
No, I don't believe it has. I do not believe it has.
Like John Lennon?
I do not believe it has.
He was.
I believe that if you can, what is it Atticus Finch says? You can't really understand a man until you've walked in his shoes.
That's what the Cherokee Indians said that too.
There you go.
Was he
We're
Indian?
not doing. Atticus Finch was the lawyer in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that understanding. I'll tell you what. Last weekend in that Cleveland High Theater, Cleveland State Theater, excuse me. There were men. I heard 3 different stories of 3 different men who were older men weeping. They were absolutely crying at the end of this production. When you get 250 people in one room and they're all responding by laughing or feeling pride or weeping, tears to their eyes. I think we need more of that rather than less. I think those are the avenues that can get us to a better understanding of one another, because we are losing that capability.
What brings people together on that? Maybe it is the performing, maybe it is the arts.
I'm a believer in that. I truly am. I think that, the fact that those people, when we started singing God Bless the USA, this audience just stood up. I love that I love that aspect of our community. But I also love that all these people could feel the same feelings at the same moment in time. That's, we've done our job.
I was in New York and I went to a play. I was going to a play and I thought I was at the wrong play. It was an off Broadway play. Which
Okay.
are really, some are very good.
Yes, they are.
But, and I thought I was at the wrong place. It was like 7 minutes till. And I thought, well, I've gotten the wrong address. 5 minutes till. There was nobody around. And at 4 minutes till, they filed in off the streets. And by the time, within that 4 minutes, everybody was sitting down, ready to watch the show. I thought, well, now that's a New York
What was
minute.
the play?
I can't remember. It's really good. It's different. It's just different than a movie.
Oh, absolutely. Now I love great films. I do enjoy movies and film, but there is no, in my mind and in my heart, the difference is huge. The difference is huge.
Now I've been to New York to the IFC Theater. Is that the name of it? It's a indie films theater.
Okay.
IFC Theater.
Okay.
I believe it is.
Okay.
And they have like 10 different theaters. Some of them are no bigger than this room.
Right.
Because the film is just so unknown.
Right.
So it's a big thing now, isn't it?
Independent films.
Independent films.
Absolutely.
Like Blair Witch Project. That
Yeah.
came out of
There you
indie
go.
films.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Well, that was good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it was really. I thought it was really good.
I thought it had
It kept
some
me.
really
It
good.
kept me thinking.
Some really good elements. I thought it did have some good elements. Yeah, I did. But in my heart, in my mind, it's theater is more personal. You're there. That's a live person up there, this far from you, talking, and you're absorbing
And you're wondering
it.
if they're going to mess up. A little bit of that.
Well, I
Or
don't.
did
I
they
don't
mess
go
up?
in knowing that, but if you see enough theater, you're going to see mess ups. I saw Yul Brynner doing The King and I decades ago now, and honey, he was drunk as a skunk, and he was lost, and he couldn't figure out what he was saying. They're human.
Would you say that theaters are more like records on vinyl versus films are more like CDs, or it's more raw?
If it's captured in plastic or
Right.
on film, it's part of the past. Theater is in the moment. It's
But-
present day. It's
but
present.
in the old vinyls, you can hear stuff that you wouldn't hear on.
Of course.
That's not run through that auto tune, and so it's a little
Of
more
course.
raw.
A little more raw, a little more real, maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
So now were you the first person in charge of the museum at 5 Points? Or?
I was on the first team. I wasn't in charge. I was on the team. I had been invited to come to a preliminary committee meeting, and that was in the very, very early days, before there was a building site or a plan or anything. And they were casting about how to tell the story of the Ocoee region. How the Hows were out there hanging in the air. And that year, my daughter, for Christmas, had received an American Girl doll. Those dolls, because they have books, that go along with the dolls.
Not familiar.
Okay. The books for the dolls all come from a different decade or time period. and Abigail had received this doll from the World War II period. So we were upstairs in the upstairs hallway, and she was saying, "Mama, what's a war?" And, you know, in talking with her about a world war, I was explaining to her what a war is and what a world.
Isn't it?
So it hit me in the upstairs hallway. I thought, if the children of Bradley County had a character, quote unquote doll or character, from each of the 7 time periods of Bradley County's history, then they could ask them questions and they could hear their stories, and it could be. So that is where the 7 living history characters came from.
And
so
you created them?
I was a part of,
Yeah.
in the hallway right up there with Abigail. You know, there had already been 7 periods of Cleveland history established. I was lucky enough to get to come up with characters for each one of those time periods.
Would this be 8, the pandemic?
Was it, I'm sorry.
Would 8 be, could another period be the 8th one with the pandemic?
It could be, yes. That certainly is history yet to be written, yet to be memorialized at the museum. But yes, the pandemic. We're going.
What was the first period? Andrew Taylor, maybe?
No. It was the Cherokee were here first.
1838.
Before, well, they were here from centuries before that. You know, one of the things.
Does anybody know where they came from?
You're asking the wrong person. My prehistoric history is limited.
How far
I'm afraid.
do you go back?
But they
do you go back to the...
in East Tennessee, people came here for one reason. Okay, it's all the water. Native Americans from the beginning of mankind, they learned to hunt and they learned to grow food and they learned to capture. They could gather food. Okay, you can't create water. You have to settle and be where the water is. In our neck of the woods, you can hardly go across town without crossing a creek.
Tennessee Valley.
The
Tennessee
river.
Valley.
The rivers, we're bounded
Yeah.
by rivers and creeks and streams everywhere. So that's why the Native Americans were here, you know, for the water.
Did you have a doll for that?
Sleeping Rabbit was the Cherokee, who is the first living history character there at the museum. Yes.
And you had to get history to prove...
Oh, yes.
To
It
symbolize...
had to be valid, absolutely. Yeah.
So what was that, what time period was that set in? Just
He
before
was pre-1800s.
Oh,
He
Lord.
was late 1700s.
There was no sign
He
of the
dates
white
back
man
to
then,
them.
was there?
Not then, no. Yeah. And then
What about Rot? Did you cover Rot?
Well, no, not really. These characters were all fictional.
Right.
So that
Oh.
we could, and I literally drove the region figuring out where this one was born and where they lived and how they represented fictitiously. The first character was the Sleeping Rabbit, the Cherokee Indian. The second character was a circuit riding Methodist minister, because the Methodists were really big on sending out circuit riding ministers to colonize
Cherokee
and to
Nation.
educate and bring.
They really did a lot to bring
They did
Christians
indeed.
or Indians to Christianity.
They did indeed. And so then we went from there on down through various periods of Cleveland history. The Civil War, how it affected Cleveland and Bradley County. We were very divided. You know, East Tennessee was not distinctly Union nor Confederate. We were very divided. And there's a small child that plays the third character. She speaks from the standpoint of being a child during that time and her life and her history, her personal history. From the Civil War, we go into the train depot. The train depot arrived, and one of the characters is the depot manager. And from there, we jump to the stove industry, and we have Burl Owenby, who is a molder in pouring iron into stove parts. I have Sarah Scott, who fictitiously taught at the old College Hill School, and then we had Dewey Hooper, who worked on the flume line up on the river when TVA came into the area. It became
That took
so
a lot of
important.
research, didn't it?
It did. It did. It was fun. I loved it.
You know, I had Will Tarver here. He played Rot.
Oh, yes.
He played. Have you seen that?
I have not
You
seen
need
that.
to watch it because it was. I had Captain Rott in the discussion. He dressed
Great.
like him. He studied him, and he answered the questions as he thought Rott would answer.
I will have to look that up.
It was really. He's a good actor.
Good.
He's a really good. He spoke with a German accent.
I'll have to look that up.
Has he ever wanted to be in one of your
That'll
plays?
be a homework. No, I know. I met him in an audition.
Yeah. So what else is new or going on?
Is new or
Yeah.
going on
Yeah.
in Cleveland? Well, the library is coming up on the centennial year. 100 years. The library will have been in existence in 23. And they
10
have
years
a whole,
before this house was built.
This house was built in 33.
33.
Cool. They're having a year full of all kinds of celebrations, and they want to do a production, musical theater kind of production, in October of next year to celebrate the library.
It's
Cleveland.
interesting how the library has taken shape, changed. I remember my grandmother taking me to the old library, and you had to be quiet. I mean, you had to walk quiet. And you had to open the books real careful and all this stuff. And they had a storyteller there. If you went on a certain day, they would read a story to you. But now you go in the library. If you go early enough in the morning, there's people taking a bath in the bathrooms. Homeless people.
Okay. No, I didn't know that.
Oh,
So-
it's horrible. You ought to just go by there, and if you really want to be enlightened, it's horrible. But there's CDs, there's books,
Yes.
there's a loud area, a quiet
Yes.
area.
Yes. They have a new robot, I think.
I hadn't seen that.
Yeah. Little white robot. I think
But
it's
the
interesting.
library has been able to evolve. It's been able to stay relevant, I think.
I think any group, any institution, anything, any entity has to evolve or die.
You know, I bet the public library renting books probably inspired a lot of the rental companies. I had never thought about that. Because, you know, they would rent CDs and
True.
all they'd have to do is rent a CD player and you got rent on.
True. There it is.
But you have to change, right?
That change is just the only thing that is constant in the world we live in is change.
It's almost like you got to worry about being skillful at what you do and how it's going to change.
I think
Because if
that's
you
very true.
don't, if you opened up a restaurant today without a drive-through, you'd be in trouble.
I think several
Since
of them
the
are.
pandemic.
True. Yes. Yes, indeed.
And I don't even like to go to the drive-through because they always get it wrong. I just order the standard, you know.
Gotcha.
Where do you work during the day?
I work at the studio, the Cleveland City Ballet, from day to day. I don't have to be there every day, but I'm there from time to time. I have a great little area of my home that is my office. It's where I write. It's where I keep up with emails and planning and this, that, and the other. Mostly there.
The coffee shop down below, it never did open back up, did it?
I don't think so.
What was
No.
the name of that?
Oh, I'm not going to remember.
I
I'm
used
sorry.
to go there quite a bit.
I don't remember names well. That's why I call everybody gorgeous.
Is that right?
That's right.
In my case, you're correct.
Ah, there you go. Couldn't help myself. There you go.
What was the name of that coffee shop down below? You know where I'm talking about. You go
I
in,
do,
and
I
they were starting to take off, and then the pandemic hit.
And there you have it. Yes. That makes it tough. Made it tough on the world. Yeah.
It really did, didn't it? You've never seen
real
nothing like
challenge.
this, have you?
No, no.
But you know, it's
Never.
been what, 2 years or 3? 2?
20 was the worst year, wasn't it?
I can't remember. When did it hit, Gwen?
20.
What year? March? What month? March? Or
February and March when it
Seems
really
like
got
I
crazy.
remember. It seems like around December they were starting to hear some rumors, but you didn't
We heard
think
rumors,
much
but
about
it didn't get really hard and awful until.
till about March.
Yeah.
That was when they flattened the curve or something.
Terrible.
Do Do you do much traveling?
I do as much as I can. I haven't since the pandemic, but I'm going back to New York first time since 19 next month, just to
Just see your daughter?
see my daughter, see some shows.
Where will you stay?
That's still up in the air. There are 2 or 3 different places that I stayed when she lived in Manhattan. She lives in Astoria now, so that's a little different. Her life has changed, as everybody's does, and so we're going to do a little exploring upstate New York this trip.
Does she like it better not living in Manhattan?
Well, you know, she's at that age. She is 30, and a young man came into her life. So we're probably looking at a wedding next year. So
You're going to go up and make sure he's okay?
I know him well. They had begun dating when the pandemic hit, and her lease was running out. And rather than rent a new hot place or find a new place, they packed up and came to my house. There's a lower level, and they were on the lower level, and I was on the upper level. So
How long were they here?
they were here about 7, 8 months.
What did he think about Cleveland, Tennessee?
He thought it was charming, lovely. He didn't want to make his living here, so they went back to the city. He's a great guy, you know. I just feel very lucky that she is, you know, headed into a life with a great guy.
It would be hard if you worked to make a living in New York and then come to Cleveland and make a living. It'd just be different, wouldn't it?
Well, you know, when we purchased Cleveland City Ballet, I thought one of these days she'd come home and run it. That's not going to happen. You know, she's not coming home to Cleveland.
I've been up there. When I was up there, they didn't have bathrooms. They got bathrooms up there now.
I don't know what you're
at the ballet on the second floor where you're at.
Oh,
At the woolen mill.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't been in there that long. It's been that long. You got an elevator?
No, we don't have an elevator.
Just stairs?
It's stairway, yes, it is.
Boy, it's solid, isn't it?
It is rock solid.
it's
we love
solid.
it. It's the only space, you know, for dancers to dance and be absolutely healthy with the flooring.
Are you
important.
in that room that's got all the big posts?
No. I don't know
The
about
room
the
I
big
was in had
posts.
those big posts in them.
Was that farther on down on the southern end of the complex there?
It was sort of in the middle, I think.
Okay.
Well, now the grist is downstairs.
That's downstairs,
They
yes,
do
it
pretty
is.
good.
I think they do great. Yeah.
Connie, I really appreciate you coming.
I thank
You
you
are
for
here by
asking me.
popular demand.
Oh, no.
Tammy Bentley thinks you hung the moon.
No. Tammy hung the moon.
I believe that.
I'm surrounded by people who have hung the moon and continue to do so every day in our community.
I keep forgetting that she's Sandra Rowland's sister. Don't
Yes.
you I forget that all the time.
I love it. I just love that aspect. I got to see Tom Saturday at a gathering, and it's good to see him.
I saw him at Aubrey's Friday.
Oh,
He
good.
was doing fine.
Good.
Me and him used to go to that coffee shop every day.
Down there,
Down
huh?
there, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm there the latter half of the day when
Yeah.
the students and the
Well,
teachers
that
are there.
was before. We didn't get there till about 3 o'clock or something. He ended up there and I ended up there. And
I see. Well,
And
that's
we-
a happy coincidence.
it really is. But we both quit, I guess, right down during the pandemic.
There you go.
Hey, I wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you
I
so
appreciate you
much.
coming.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you.